trust no one without intensity. And that's really hard to do because people, when they get into a not trustworthy place, flirt with fight and flight and traumatize their own brain, right? And that's why we always say empowered, not panicked is how you get through chronic illness, right? You have to be present. You have to show up to class and get ready to work. But if you show up to class like this, my keto teacher used to say, raise your shoulders and play a beautiful concerto on the piano. You're not going to heal CIRS or get the right people in your building like this. You're going to get it like this, like a black belt.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Dr. D, Dr. Dorninger. Is it okay if I call you Dr. D?
You can call me anything but late for dinner because I do get hypoglycemia.
Perfect. I am so excited and just honored to have you here today to share your wisdom with us. But before we get started, I would love for you to just share your story because as I mentioned before we hit record, you have recovered yourself from CIRS and you help others do this. So I'd love to learn more about your story and the work that you do.
Yeah, so we don't have enough time for my story, but I'll tell you my abbreviated story and add that I've been through 3 chronic illnesses in my life. And the third and final chapter was chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And some of my other illnesses were part of shaping and inspiring wanting to jump into healthcare. I had a healthcare crisis where I had a mediocre experience in the ER. And long story short, without all the details of that one, I had massive arrhythmia. And I went into the ER in Denison, Ohio, and told the nurse all about my life. And she's like, well, cardiologist, be right in. And he came in, I had EKG leads on me. And I said, well, how am I doing? He's like, well, the good news is you didn't have a heart attack, but you do have a massive arrhythmia. And I said, sir, I am ready. Like, what do I need to do to get my heart healthy and feel good? And he said, don't drink, don't smoke, don't eat spicy foods. I'm like, that's it?
Spicy
There's
foods.
not more? Like exercise? Fish oil, meditation, prayer, not even the easy cardiovascular stuff. So I came home from that trip to Boulder, Colorado, where I was floundering as an undergrad student at University of Colorado, Boulder, and didn't know where my life was going, and talked about this vision of healthcare that I had to a platonic girlfriend, Bonnie. And she said, oh, this is called naturopathic medicine. There's a school for that in Seattle and Portland, Oregon, and in Arizona. And at the time that was Bastyr University, National College of Naturopathic Medicine, which is now NUNM, National University of Naturopathic Medicine, and Southwest in Arizona, which is now Sonoran, which I will be going to teach this fall on CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, because we got to teach the new naturopathic medical students and the conventional medical students CIRS. And I went on this thing called the internet because I'm old, and those schools came up with a telephone number. I didn't have my own laptop. I literally had to go to the library to go on internet. And I called them all, and they sent me their swag bags of paper pamphlets on the school. And in there was the principles of naturopathic medicine, which are incredible, but also the therapeutic order, which is really what I built my entire clinic around. And the therapeutic order is step 1, remove obstacle to cure. And in new school language, we call that identify and treat the underlying causes. So if you don't want lead poisoning, stop drinking pipes out of Flint, Michigan water supply, right? And you can do all the homeopathy you want. You can take all the herbs you want. You can cold plunge. You're still going to get lead poisoning if you're still drinking from those pipes. Second one was reestablish healthy regimen, which I think Funk Med and integrated medicine does a good job with still today. You know, healthy diet, lifestyle, stress management, that kind of stuff. The third is stimulate the vital force, which is cold plunging, acupuncture, the right homeopathic remedy. Number 4 is tonify systems. We do targeted nutraceuticals, not random supplement protocols, but off labs and imaging. And then step 5 is correct structural integrity. I love having a chiro to put my rib back, but then I should do things like foundation training, Eric Goodman stuff, or pain-free, or knees over toes guy, or all the other. Edith Hughes has incredible stuff to retrain my body to hold my rib so it doesn't pop out. I don't create a codependency. Right. I go live my life and roll jiu-jitsu and powder ski and D-up on my 17-year-old on the basketball court. Right. And then step 6 is drugs and surgery. So we're not anti-drugs and surgery. It's just if I have depression, I shouldn't start with Prozac. To make tryptophan from my turkey slices into serotonin, I require vitamin D to turn on the enzyme that turns tryptophan into serotonin. So why wouldn't I check vitamin D levels before giving Prozac? Right.
Right.
So I'm not anti-Prozac. I'm anti starting with Prozac and not asking, but why depression?
Yeah.
And so I say, take the best of the West and flush the rest. Then we have a lot of integrated medicine issues too, where we're doing kind of random protocols and trial and error medicine and green band-aids. And in the CIRS world, we're doing a lot of building band-aids, right? This miracle cure and that miracle cure. No, you got to do first principles, find the water source, remove the water source, whether that's humidity or a leak, rip out anything that's water damaged, dry rot, stained, whatever, clean the HVAC, make sure there's no sewer gas leaks, do a aerosol or small particle clean, and finally restore that building as an air palace where someone's going to get through the obstacle to cure. Step one of Shoemaker Protocol, remove
Yeah.
from biotoxin exposure. So that's a long way to say I just went from floundering like the rainbow. I was getting all the grades, A, B, C, D, and F in undergrad. And I turned it on, went back for pre-med and BA in kinesiology, which is now called integrated physiology. And that was the quickest way to get my pre-med done, including my organic chemistry, which I got a B in. And I got straight A's, a B in OChem, and then a C in scientific writing. And I had this incredible professor that really taught me how to write and just got done with my fourth medical paper on CIRS, and I still celebrate him because he would just cross it out. The best writing is rewriting. And I was doing 22 credit semesters trying to catch up on life. And I found my calling, which was to change the healthcare system and to do underlying causes medicine. I got to Bastyr during the golden years and I learned incredible underlying cause medicine. And I love blood sugar and nutrition. And we have a whole nutrition department at Roots and Branches. And I love diving in counseling a little bit because we did some of that at Bastyr, but I refer to trauma therapists all the time when things are super heavy, and we're not going to see an eating disorder patient without substantial therapy support, nutrition support, etc. But I didn't want to be a glorified therapist or a glorified nutritionist. I wanted to be a doctor who finds the underlying causes of medicine. So that's the clinic we built. I call it healthcare narcissism, where you think you know as a doctor why the patient has depression. You think you know why the patient has joint pain. What you're supposed to do as a doctor is you're supposed to write down in your head or on the chart a list of healthcare guesstimates of why depression, why headache, why brain fog and fatigue, why dead libido, why exercise intolerance. And when I take a headache, for example, there's 100 reasons I have for a headache. Could be a tooth abscess, could be concussion history, could be CIRS, could be low vitamin D. All of your headache drugs are serotonin based, right? Could be the 17 antibiotics you took as a kid for your earaches that wiped out your good gut biome, and now your biome doesn't modulate your immune system, so you're getting inflammatory cytokine flares. Could be all the above. And most of my headache patients are 12, 13, 14 things that add up and create the threshold, which is a headache. Right? That's called total load in naturopathic medicine, where it's not one thing. It's this stacks on this, stacks on this, stacks on this. And we finally hit and sometimes that's even like, I was right there and my kid had an earache as you're 6 months pregnant, right? We were talking about that in the green room. And now I'm up with the earache. And instead of getting 6.5 to 7, my minimum to get those restorative growth hormones and anti-inflammatory effects of restorative sleep, I got 5 hours. And that tips me into my headache, right? Yeah. So we were humming along at Roots and Branches, kicking butt. I tell you, if you stabilize people's blood sugar, listen to their story, support like kicking toxic relationships to the curb and getting into community that's supportive and loving and dealing with your own bleep and get the seed oils out and the anti-inflammatory EPA, DHA in, maybe a little Chinese herbs, you get a lot of stuff dramatically better, right? Yeah. But then there was these cases that never got better in our clinic. And if you're not full of yourself, you will bring that home like a heavy albatross of disappointment in yourself. Say, I suck and I'm letting Mrs. Smith down. And in 2013, I wasn't feeling well. My wife wasn't feeling well. My younger had misdiagnosis of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. He was seronegative, which means it was negative on lab, but they still put him in that bucket because he had joint pain, mood lability, headache, tummy pain, occasional bedwetting, went long out of daytime diapers. That didn't really fit his development. And then my older had headaches and cervical lymph nodes that I was like, shit, is this lymphoma? And we were all kind of limping along, and I was like living on, enthusiasm for healing and a bar of dark chocolate every day to keep my brain working, my dopamine popping. And then the 2013 floods came and 16 inches of rain, which is an annual Colorado rainfall in 1 week. And Boulder County is in a basin with the Flatirons. It's beautiful, but it's clay soil that doesn't absorb moisture well. It would turn into like a soup bowl where the streets literally turn into 14-inch rivers.
Wow.
And the students were like doing wheelies in and stuff like that. And then so much of the city sewer got flooded that manhole covers started popping up and brown water started coming. And knowing nothing about CIRS, I was like, hey guys, like there's brown wrinkle-neck trout. Yeah, caca, doo-doo in that while you're biking. And I watched patients that weren't getting better with us get worse and patients who were getting better with us regress. And I was like, what is going on? And I had this very eclectic superstar of a phlebotomist that was pulling blood in our clinic. And she would talk to me about EMFs and I would challenge her on data on that. And, I still think we need more. We know as a common sense naturopath, like a cell tower is not good for me, right? We just need better science on understanding what we can get away with, what we can't get away with, and crystal therapy and all kinds of wild, more exotic stuff. And I was always there for it. But then I'd be like, Cheryl, I got to go back to patients. And then she hands me Dr. Shoemaker's first book, Mold Warriors. This is his second book, Surviving Mold. And she goes, you think a lot like this guy. You should check it out. I took the book. I went like this. I threw it on my bookshelf. And this is about 6 months before the flood.
Wow.
And sitting there wondering about, man, maybe there's something to mold in a semi-arid desert. I was thinking like Seattle or Florida. I'd have to know mold, but dry Colorado.
Yeah.
And so I read the first 2 chapters of Mold Warriors. And I've talked about this once in a while on a couple podcasts. And I was like, huh. And I was driving home and it's driving me crazy. I call my wife. I'm like, I'm making home dinner. I'm going to pull over in this random Starbucks. And I remember it like yesterday. I think fondly of this Starbucks on 30th and Arapahoe. And I got myself a cup of peppermint tea and I read chapter 3 and then kept reading. And chapter 3 is where all the biochemistry is. The unidentified bright objects. These are white matter lesions that don't sit where multiple sclerosis white matter lesions do, is CIRS, right? MMP9, the overlap of matrix metalloproteinase 9, this inflammatory marker that lights up your brain in CIRS and MS, right? And why there's overlap in those symptoms. Low alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone, your queen or king hormone that regulates all downstream phenomenon. Your blood sugar, your appetite, your blood pressure, your endorphin production, your reproductive cycle and fertility or infertility, your circadian rhythms, get up with the sun, go to bed with the sun, all comes off that hypothalamus pituitary through this miracle messenger, MSH. Totally crashes in CIRS. And it's the first time I heard melanocyte stimulating hormone go beyond. It stimulates melanin production in your skin, or it can be melanoma. And so I said, holy bleep. I went home. I told my wife, I was like, I think I know what's going on with this town. And the next day, so I looked up Dr. Shoemaker and his Shoemaker Physician Training Program. And the next day I talked to his assistant, Deb Wadner, who's received the Angels Award at CIRS and also the Heroes Award, which are 2 huge awards. Angel Award is for people who just do nothing but altruism. Working for Dr. Shoemaker for 45 years is an altruistic task. He is not easy. He's brilliant. He's a badass. Me and my family aren't held without him. He's a dear friend of mine now, but she helped really organize that big, beautiful brain he had and so a lot of his data sets in those early papers. So I called Deb Wader the next day and I said, you'd sign up for this? And that was fall of 2013. And Dr. Shoemaker's been yelling at me ever since, demanding excellence. Critical care, right? And for people who misinterpret Dr. Shoemaker, he's fulfilled his Hippocratic oath. As a medical doctor, you take the Hippocratic oath. And it's about service, it's about loyalty. In Duke, you were expected as a medical doctor to go out into the world and publish data on your small hole in the wall practice, or if you're working at Ivory Tower, Cleveland Clinic, or wherever you wound up, you're supposed to be producing data to prove out better healthcare to get people access to answers. And I had a lot of it down. Early in the game, I understood seed oils is a problem. Like I've been talking about seed oils for over 22 years. I just didn't realize you had to call them seed oils for them to be cool on Instagram. Right? We've been calling them arachidonic acid, omega-6, and linoleic acid. Right. The first thing we did is we overhauled our clinic to be able to pull the blood. And this is the biggest problem. It's a pain in the keister to run a CIRS practice just on data collection alone. Most people just go, oh, I'm going to do urinary mycotoxins or some other unsubstantiated phenomenon because it's hard work. Just getting the data is by getting in the right one. Alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone has to come from LabCorp. C4A, C3A has to come from National Jewish Hospital, and et cetera, et cetera. So it took a hot minute to figure that out. And we pulled my family as the earliest patients. And to this day, we still have some of the highest original biomarkers of any CIRS.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
holy bleep. This is why I'm depressed with suicidal ideations, despite supposedly owning a home in Boulder County, which I got a loan I shouldn't have gotten in 2003 as a student with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. And, I had no right getting a loan. That was like before the collapse with all
Yeah.
derivative swaps, right? And I was one of the ones who actually paid my mortgage without going into default, but it was by the grace of God and
Wow.
the grit and grime. So it was wild, weird times for us. We were going to get divorced every other week. I thought we were sick of each other, but we were just sick of life because our brains weren't working, right? And then we also had this fear in the back of our head: is Ozzy and Phoenix going to be okay? Does Phoenix have lymphoma? I mean, my older was pretty functional, but he had these hard lymph nodes. He'd get these weird headaches. So we do the labs and off the charts confirm CIRS. Real quick for your listeners, the way you screen for CIRS is you do a visual contrast sensitivity test, staring at those blurred lines, and that's a neuroinflammatory test. When your inflammation's high, there's 7 kinds of vision, and visual acuity is what you do at the eye doctor: E, Z, G, F, T. Visual contrast is the ability to see blurred lines. So a lot of times night vision goes bye-bye when you're in CIRS. The dusk of the mountain meets the grass, meets the highway, gets all weird. But when you're not inflamed, you can see these blurred lines pretty darn well until they get extremely difficult to see. And then you ask 37 symptoms, known as the clustered symptoms, arranged into 13 groups called clusters. And between those two tests, you can get a 95 to a 98.85% sensitivity, a 1 in 20 to a 1 in 50 chance you're looking at CIRS for $20 and 7 minutes of doctoring time, or your medical assistant or your nurse or whoever. And we did that, and you have to be 7 years old to be able to conceptualize the visual contrast. So we couldn't do the visual contrast on my younger. We do the labs, and there's 57 biomarkers that can confirm or deny CIRS now. When I started, there was 10 original, and that is VCS, HLA, MMP9, TGF-beta, C4A from National Jewish Hospital, because they don't put a preservative called Futhan in there, alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone from LabCorp, ACTH cortisol mismatch, ADH osmolality mismatch, VEGF, and gliadin antibodies. And if you have 4 out of 10 of those or more, you are confirmed CIRS in unpublished data sets. So we have huge, massive data sets of thousands of patients to prove that, but it's not published. 5 out of 10 was what Dr. Shoemaker published early in the game. And then if you start getting 6, 7, 8, it's just like the p-values, or the statistical likelihood that it's a coincidence, starts getting into the 1 in a million chance we're wrong. And that's when I was like, I'm in. I can tell someone to remediate a crawl space for $40K if the stats are that good, right? When people are telling someone to remediate on a urinary mycotoxin, I'm like, you better hope they really have CIRS, because that is a test of exposure, not diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
So we did that. We were the highest ever. We get going, and then it's 2013, and everyone who likes to smoke weed and owns a fan comes to Boulder, Colorado to help remediate. I'm a remediator, right? And I'm like, didn't you just move here from Texas and you like legal weed and you brought a box fan? You're not a remediator. So you couldn't find anyone who really understood water damage. And to this day, Boulder's still a mess in a lot of buildings because things got quasi-dried out, a little flood cut, and things did not get done right? That 2x4 plate is still sitting on that damp slab that has water under it without a vapor barrier.
Yep.
And if you sawzall that and lift it up, there it is, and on and on and on. So the buildings got hammered. I mean, almost everybody took on water. The sad thing is some little underground rivers weren't open and penetrated until that 16 inches of rain came. So now you get a little bit of rain and water's finding its way down foundation walls and under slabs like it didn't pre-flood. It's a mess. And you think semi-arid desert, not a problem. So long story shorter, we had a hard time finding people who knew how to remediate.
Yeah.
And I followed a lot of charlatans, shenanigans, the citrus fog, that's biocidal. We did that on bad advice. And what you'll see on that is you have a mold plate that's growing mold. And then you do a 1-hour gravity plate the next day, and the mold is gone. It doesn't grow because you ruptured cell wall fragments. So draw a mold spore in your mind's eye as a circle. Now draw it as dashes. That's what a biocidal fog will do, or any biocidal, any killing agent. Remediation never involves killing except for extreme circumstances in the IICRC S520. That's like the guideline. It's very frowned upon to use biocides, even though people use them all day long, because it's never about killing. It's about removal and capture, right? What does a HEPA do? Removal and capture. What does an airway society adapt do? Removal and capture. What is a microfiber Swiffer cloth? Removal and capture, right? What is setting up containment and having your crew pull out dry rot, water staining, microbial growth, getting it out? That's removal, right? What does the aerosolver fog do? It's a non-toxic, non-biocide. Just like in the asbestos industry, it makes all the tiny dancing Brownian motion particulates settle, and then you wipe it out, right? So we finally got the right people in 2014, and we had 41 isolated water damage experiences. My son pulled his crib bed at 7, and it was like a little Harry Potter closet. Would put this crib bed in this closet, and it was this little cave bed, right? And we ripped off all 3 walls behind the sheetrock microbial growth. My other son, who was crawling into bed every night with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis misdiagnosis at 4 years old, we had a supply line leak to the ice maker that went across the hallway. The wood floor was visibly buckled, but as a mold illiterate person, I was like, oh, it'll just dry out. It's Colorado, right? That went over to his 2x4 floor plate. That was full of microbial growth, and the 2x4s up against his bed. Everyone needs to understand, my son was sleeping against a drywall painted that had no microbial growth right there. Right behind it was massive black mold. And that's coming through the outlets, that's coming through your sconce, that's coming through pressure gradients at the base of the floor and everywhere in between, right? So if you're going to go through 41 isolated water damage experiences, make it fun. So after we ripped all that out, we made a secret door behind a mirror in between the boys' rooms because it was all stripped. And I was trying to make lemonade. And I was like, look, guys, we're going to make a trap door. And, and just trying to make lemonade, really. Yeah. And so we did that. We have a CIRS story of biblical proportions. Before I knew CIRS, we slept in my wife's best friend's barn up on hay near the chickens. Like
actual biblical,
like baby Jesus in the barn we had camping pads next to chicken straw with actual chickens downstairs. We did that for 2 weeks. I'm sure we got endotoxin.
Was that during your remediation when you were?
That was during the remediation. Okay. So our 41 isolated locations was a 6-month remediation. 6 months. And then we finally got into our neighbors, had a mom. This is when Airbnb was kind of people were kind of doing it. And she was going to Europe, and we got in there for 3 of those 6 months. And then they got done with our downstairs. We were able to move in the downstairs where they do our upstairs. We didn't have HVAC. We had piped hot water heat. Probably wasn't the safest thing to do. We didn't know better on that too. Terry, who was one of the weed smokers who brought a box van from Texas, he parked his moldy RV outside our house and was living on a power cord. He would come into the downstairs shower and take showers in there. And he lived in an RV. One of our remediator laborers lived outside our house for 6 months. He picked the plums in his 2-liter Coke bottles, made plum wine that I tried. I had to take a sip of the gangster wine, right? And it was horrible.
Oh my God.
And this was bananas, right?
Wow.
And when I would sit quietly at night, I don't hear when I pray, but I would be like, God, what is up? And I would get this feeling that would say, I want you to know. Now, when I pray, why did the Dorninger tribe get access to Dr. Shoemaker's work and true underlying cause, published, peer-reviewed, proven ways to deal with CIRS, and everyone else isn't? So now I pray for access. I want everyone to get there. So the last thing I'll say about our journey. So we move in, the boys are on fish oil. Ozzy gets on well call, the cholestyramine tablet form. 2 weeks into well call, no joint pain, no tummy pain, no mood lability. Dry as a bone out of his diaper. No headaches. Gone.
Wow.
Yeah, gone. Phoenix's headaches instantly gone. Lymph nodes starting to regress.
Wow.
And
1 week in.
2 weeks.
2 weeks in.
2 weeks in. Yep. Clean building. Dr. Ming calls it the 1-2 punch, right? Number one is remove patient from biotoxin exposure. Number two is cholestyramine, cholestyramine, what I'll call binder on high dose fish oil with gut motility, right? And so I think I was meant to have that dramatic turnaround experience to go, holy bleep, this is my guy, right?
Yeah.
And learning from Dr. S, like we had this listserv where you ask questions and he would be like, how do you not know that? You need to read and remember. And then people would quietly email me like, are you okay? That was pretty intense. I'm like, of course I'm effing okay. I need to know what I'm doing for Tommy on Monday. My fear isn't getting yelled at for asking the question that all you sissies had on your mind and didn't ask, right?
Yeah.
My fear is that I'm going to fail Tommy on Monday. I'm going to fail Mrs. Smith on Monday. They're going to come to me and we're going to talk this big game of finding and identifying the underlying causes using validated labs and imaging to prove or disprove our healthcare guesstimates. And we're not going to figure it out. That's my angst. Or someone comes to me, they spend $250,000 on nonsense, right?
Yeah.
They've moved 5 times. They've done 10 rounds of IV ozone, and doesn't mean there's not an application of IV ozone. Not CIRS. They own 3 saunas, 2 cold plunges. I Wim Hof breathe and cold plunge 5 days a week. That's great. Doesn't treat CIRS. So they come in and now we're out of money we're going to need to fix their house. So that 6-month remediation remodel, remember, I'm 10 years out of school. I bought a house I can't afford for a good interest rate. I rented out the downstairs apartment illegally for 10 years. Then later I made that legal apartment because I couldn't afford living in Boulder on a new naturopathic doctor clinical practice, right? My residency, I made $35,000 my first year. And the reason I say this is because I'm making a doctor wage now. But my first 10 years, it was living on a shoestring and in a great place. Like, let's go tube the creek, and tubes cost $10 and I can panhandle for some weed and some Pabst Blue Ribbons. But it was like that, right?
Yeah.
Then we had to pull a home equity line of credit. The only lucky thing we had was buying that house in 2003, 10 years in Boulder County, you get some equity. So we pulled about $100K in home equity line of credit. We drained $60,000 of every single nickel of savings we had left. And then our dad's gotten this little ego battle. My dad's native Austrie's like, I'm going to pay for the kitchen. Here's a $10,000 check. And then Sarah's dad goes, oh, I'm going to help. Here's a $10,000 check. And then the kitchen was more than 10K. It was 20K. So my dad gave it 20K. Sarah's dad gave 20K. We drained 60K in savings, did a home equity of 100K, and through $200,000 did a remediation remodel. If I knew what I knew now, how we educate our patients on the building would have been 150K in 2013. We would have saved about 50K in mistakes. The same project now would be 400K.
Wow.
Like remediation and remodeling have dramatically outpaced inflation.
Yeah.
Right? That's the Dorninger tribe's story.
Wow.
And I always tell people, where was I heading? I was heading to memory care. Let me tell you about memory care. I worked at Fraser Meadows Retirement Community, our Cadillac facility, then Balfour here in Boulder County. And that's where all the rich people who sell their house in Chautauqua go when they don't know where their car is. And it's $25,000 a month, memory care. That is Cadillac facility memory care. You go to the OC, it's $35K. You go to NYC, it's $35K. You go to the middle of Mississippi, it's $12K for Cadillac facility.
Wow.
And then you blow through your family cash, and now you're on Medicare at $8 to $12K a month with understaffed facilities that let you sit in your poopy diapers. And it's not because they don't care, it's because they're understaffed. So dementia, Alzheimer's is the number 1 per capita cost in healthcare, and it's non-medical. It's sponge baths, changing your diapers, spoon feeding you, and just kind of managing your meds and trying to help you die in dignity. So my whole point on that is this is the most intense driver of dementia, Alzheimer's in my 30 years of healthcare, 22 years of private practice. Right? This is it. This makes COVID look like a baby, right? This is a $300 to $330 billion illness, according to Dr. McMahon's recent calculations. And he's kind of savant with that stuff, which is on par with type 2 diabetes. In every dialysis center, every overpriced type 2 diabetic drug, every cut off your leg surgery, and CIRS is the same cost, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And so what I tell my patients all the time, how many buildings could you have fixed for $300K a year that your family is going to spend all their assets on in memory care? Unless you're smart enough to get, there's a insurance policy that you can get for things like ALS or dementia and that kind of stuff. So that's our story. Everyone's doing well. Life isn't perfect. We have to still work on being better people in our marriage, and still got to work at being patient as a dad. And I still got to work at being the best doctor I can be. And I still got to work in, and then how do I take care of myself and exercise? I just started kickboxing at Dwayne Bang Ludwig's 18 months ago consistently. And that is the one thing I let myself do and no one's allowed to touch. Everything else, I'm here for everybody else and everything else. But don't call me from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. because I'll be kicking the crap out of a bag saying, I hate healthcare. I hate healthcare. I hate healthcare. And then I come off the mat and say, maybe we can fix healthcare. So how do we find the underlying cause? How do we solve, resolve, graduate? And then how do we pay that forward while including yourself in some self-care? And new mamas need that message more than anybody because you always come last, right? I like my wife, like, did you eat or did you just feed the boys, right? Why are you taking care of your aging parents before you take care of yourself for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Get out of here and go to CrossFit. And then we like you more when you come home from CrossFit anyway, right?
Yeah. You got to fill your cup to fill other people's cups. And your story, it's the classic, like you had to go through it so that you could help people go through it. And you can really see and feel their pain too. And I think it's such a story of hope too, to know that people can get through it, because I think it's such a hard thing to get diagnosed as CIRS in the first place. A lot of people run in circles for so long before they realize it's CIRS. And then you have to pay everything with your house. I mean, it's exactly why I do the work that I do, like trying to prevent that from even happening in the first place, because once you get to the point where you're making all those changes, it's so hard to fix those things in retrospect. So you've been working with people who go through this all the time. Do you see that once CIRS is diagnosed and once people clean up their environment, once they begin their protocol, it usually is like 2-3 weeks and they're already starting to see really big improvements? Is that how quickly?
So we have data on that. The sequential activation of innate immune elements shows that sequential means chapter book. Innate immune elements, what means inflammatory cytokines, MMP9, C4A, TGF-beta, is where Dr. Shoemaker took people from a moldy building and then put them in clean building on well-called cholestyramine. And though the symptoms and the inflammatory cytokines normalize over 6 to 12 weeks, and that's water damage building mold. What we're finding with sewer gas endotoxin, it can take a little longer. It's more 3 to 6 months on clean building well-called cholestyramine for that total reset. If they have brain atrophy and their immune system is totally disorganized, it's that last step, vasoactive intestinal peptide, then we regrow brain. Not on me like muscle testing or vibe coding, like, bro, your brain is better. Pre and post brain MRI with NeuroQuant. And the reason I get so excited about that is they told me in the 80s, nerves don't regrow in 8th grade science class. And they were wrong. You just need to set the fertile soil for nerves to regrow. And that is the first steps of the Shoemaker Protocol, right? The big three are clean building, adequate cholestyramine, well-called cholestyramine on high-dose fish oil with good gut motility to take the biotoxin to the toilet brick by brick, row by row. Cholestyramine, well-called cholestyramine, is a garbage truck that comes out your butt the same way it went in your mouth. It just grabs the toxic bile. So your poor liver gallbladder is putting out a garbage can every Monday and no garbage truck comes through the neighborhood. So then you just pull the garbage can back in your garage, pour more garbage from the kitchen and your bedrooms and the TV room. You put it back out and no garbage truck comes. And you pull it back in, right? So finally comes in, grabs that toxic bile and takes it to the toilet. I've been Instagramming on more than just biotoxins. There's a phenomenal study on now it's taking forever chemicals to the toilet too. So it takes PFAS. Well done human trial. So on these natural binders, no one's done data on human controls on does it lower CIRS. We're not checking urinary mycotoxin levels. We're checking, did MMP9 come down? Did C4A come down? Did TGF-beta come down, right? It's not CUMS, chronic urinary mycotoxin syndrome. It's not CABs, chronic antibodies to mycotoxins. It's CIRS, chronic innate inflammatory responses, right? MMP9, C4A, TGF-beta. So you get on there for 6-12 weeks and those came down and the clustered symptoms list starts going from 30 symptoms to 40 14 symptoms, to 10 symptoms, to 4 symptoms, and so on and so forth. I love episode 8 of our podcast, The Vitality Hour, where we talk about Aaron Pettigrew's. He's a patient who allows me to share his life. He actually volunteer calls some of my hopeless men with CIRS. Gets on the phone with them and says, brother, this is the way. This is how you're going to get there. And these men just need that little service moment where someone holds their hand and says, we can do it. But he went from 34 to 14 to 4 to 1. And then he shares on the podcast. And that 1 was a fatigue. And my fatigue got about 50% better. And I knew in my heart and brain the rest was going to happen in the gym that I could finally go back to because my exercise intolerance cleared, right? So diet and lifestyle are still real. People can't even do lifestyle when they're in CIRS. The gym was stolen from them. The jiu-jitsu mat was stolen from them. The hike was stolen from them. Hiking to Peak 6 and catching some fresh powder and going, wow, the world is okay. I don't have to think about the Straits of Hormuz for 2 weeks. I got a powder hit. The real uncut, pure Colorado powder. You know? So this is what we're trying to do. And he shares he had 4 nuclear atrophy. 1 nuclear atrophy is average aging for 40. We're all going to turn from a grape to a raisin slowly in graceful age, right? We're all going to have some pretty substantial atrophy, even in the healthiest person in the room at 98 years old, right? He was progressed. We regrew 3.5 of his 4 nuclear atrophies. So he started way in the back class. And then as he graduated CIRS, he has less atrophy than his average healthy control age matched human being, right? All because of that guy who everyone gives so much hate because he was intense and gruff as a mentor, right? Who cares? You stay up for 80 to 100-hour work weeks, put $2 million into financing your own research because John Hopkins and your dear Duke alma mater won't support you. You be a one-man band with Deb Wadner on your side, literally working dawn till dusk, proving what you know. So it's like 6 to 12 weeks for mold, 3 to 6 months. And it's not like on week 6, you wake up and you feel better. It's like F, D minus, D plus, C minus, C plus. The C plus is like, I didn't yell at the kids today, right? And I could go for a walk. And my 2-hour nap turned into a 20-minute nap. And I wasn't caffeine seeking as much to stay awake so I don't crash the car with the kids in it. And I slept better because I had less caffeine. And it just, the Rocky theme song starts playing. And that's like, the rest is like, the husband comes in and like, mold, and we already had 3 remediators in. And we did citrus fog, and that already took care of the mold. And, you know, you're like, ugh, I hate life. I hate it. And I got to drop all these truth bombs of horrible news and why this didn't work and that didn't work. But then the afternoon is and nothing. It is such a crack pipe high to see a human being get their quality life back. We had a total mix yesterday of really tight spot people. It was like a suicidal ideation day again. And those just come. And then some glory stories. And when you do diagnosis right, beyond CIRS, right? The headache case of 2023 in Roots and Branches was this nurse who wanted to be a new nurse practitioner. They're too dumb, in their words. That's not me. I'm too dumb to be a nurse practitioner. One of the grumpiest patients I ever met. And violent headaches of 7 years. Also confirmed CIRS, but violent headaches 7 years. Talked about this sensitive tooth he had. And he said, my dentist told me to keep an eye on it. I'm like, hell no. We're doing a 3D cone beam CT. A panoramics UD misses 34% of all active dental infections. So 1 out of 3 people right now with dental infection are being told, you're good. The 3D cone beam turns that 90 degrees and stacks and makes a 3-dimensional model of the dental bone where the infection can run but can't hide. He had a total tooth abscess. He gets his tooth abscess pulled. His headaches of 7 years are gone 4 hours later.
Wow.
He said 2 words I never thought I'd hear out of him. Thank you. And then within the same minute, he goes, but I'm still tired. And I'm like, bro, of course you are. You have raging CIRS, but you don't have raging migraines that are getting in the way of you handling the intense onslaught of managing, babysitting, of remediation. And our recent podcast with Christine Simabue is about new builds. And she like punched me in the gut where it's like, it's all about you controlling everything in the situation. You are the empowered overlord of your build, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, you're right. There's no one with integrity left. And we are just fighting 300 construction orcs who are trying to screw up my house. And that's like the attitude. It's like trust no one without intensity. And that's really hard to do because people, when they get into a not trustworthy place, flirt with fight and flight and traumatize their own brain, right? And that's why we always say empowered, not panicked is how you get through chronic illness, right? You have to be present. You have to show up to class and get ready to work. But if you show up to class like this, my keto teacher used to say, raise your shoulders and play a beautiful concerto on the piano. You're not going to heal CIRS or get the right people in your building like this. You're going to get it like this, like a black belt. Whoa. Hey, I need to talk to you about some things about this OSB that's covered in microbial growth that you're about to install in my house that's been sitting in a mud pile in Tennessee. And you can just talk like this and you'll actually get more done.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a lot like marriage.
It's a partnership. And that's like one of the reasons I started moving into the owner's representative roles, because my clients, when they're sick, they don't have the capacity to take on what it is needed for a new build and the coordination and the follow-up and the dynamics of the team and holding everyone accountable and making sure all the checks and balances are getting completed. And it's a very hard job. It's a very time-intensive job. And it's really hard for anybody who's going through this process, whether it's just a remediation, whether it's a remediation renovation, or doing a new build, somebody who's maybe they're starting to feel better a little bit, but it's still the capacity that you need in order to manage all those people is really hard.
Can you just tell your listeners, I'm sure they know a lot about you, but what you do, because the third party piece of that is important, right? And when you take the top 3 CIRS clinics in the world of 8 billion, and to think that I got burned and wasted $50K as a doctor who was treating underlying cause illness, who was mold illiterate. Can you just tell a little bit to your listeners, like what you do? And when I say like, you need to be the overlord to be able, with people who know what they're doing.
Right. And honestly, the projects that I work on that are the most successful, where I think people actually end up saving the most money in the long run, are the ones where there's tons of consultants on the project. But I think there's this resistance of people. They want to bring one person on maybe to help them consult and be everything to that project. But, you know, what I do as an owner's rep is I act as an advocate for the owner. And I am actually bringing in different consultants, helping them. So whether it's a remediation, inspectors, remediators, their building science, building envelope consultants, materials specialists, electromagnetic radiation specialists. I have certifications in all these things, but what I realized really quick is that I am a jack of all trades, master of none, which makes me, I think, very good at being an owner's rep, because I know enough to know exactly what questions we need to ask, but to bring those professionals in who spend their day in, day out, nights on focusing on that one area of expertise. And then so what I'm doing is really managing all those pieces and making sure they're lining up properly and making sure that we're getting the right post-remediation verifications, and how are we following up on that? And does the contractor know what needs to be done? And getting everyone in the room to collaborate, because I think in the end, everyone wants to do the best. I think most of the time builders mean well, they just don't know what they don't know. And if we can clearly communicate our goals to everybody and ensure everyone knows what their responsibilities are and actually follows through with what their responsibilities are, then the project can be really, really successful. But it does often require a team effort. I mean, it's a team sport through and through. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to wrap their heads around, is how many people they have to pay up front to consult and do this and that. But in the end, you save on all the mistakes that could potentially be made, which are way harder to fix down the road and so expensive.
So Bill Weber and Christine Symbio are doing a joint talk at CIRS this year. And it's an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of mold. And I cannot wait. And I want to make sure everyone just heard what Ashley said. You are not a jack of all trades, master of none. You are a jack of all trades, master of some. And I'm the same way in healthcare.
Exactly.
I know when to pull in a specialist, right? I'm going to pull in a urologist. I don't expect a urologist to know how the bladder engages with the brain and the whole body and all the whole health, naturopathic, blah, blah, blah. But you know when something's not right. And what I think Ashley does for builders. So if you're a contractor, it's not an us and them thing. When she comes in, she actually helps you avoid mistakes without intensity, right? We're not like babysitting's too condescending a word. We're supporting a good build, which means you're going to pass inspection, which means your year warranty isn't going to fail, which means you're not going to be in legal lawsuits, and you're going to actually learn how to make your next house even better, right? And we're going to grow together as a community. And then you're going to learn that in that process, holy sugar, I think my nephew, who's been bedwetting because my sister's home has this thing she was talking about, this CIRS thing. And then she tells the sister, and then that little guy doesn't shoot up a school from the albatross of shame of bedwetting as a 12-year-old in a basement playing Xbox when his friends make fun of him and goes, Jeremy spoke in class today. And so it's so important that people hear what you just said, that some upfront services that help project manage and have that radar of nope. It's such a gift to what you're doing, because at the end of the day, I feel like a Doctors Without Borders doctor keeps giving antibiotics to the tribe who keeps drinking from the sick well. And I'm on the radio going, we need water engineers to come in now and fix the water supply, right? And I feel like that some days where I'm like, holy sugar, Ashley, can we clone you so that every project has oversight with love and knowledge, kindness and decency, but sincerity. We're not here to play golf on Friday together. You're screwing up my client's house right now. And let me help you help them and you. Or Bill Weber's going to be testifying on construction defect because you forgot a rain screen.
Yeah.
Or you didn't flash windows properly, et cetera, right? Or you just saw that big pack of moldy lumber come in and you didn't call it out because you like Tommy at the lumberyard. Well, Tommy's great, but his lumber sucks today.
Yeah. Or you tried to call it out and you got steamrolled by your builder or somebody on site, and you just didn't know how to handle that dynamic because you've never been in that situation before. I mean, the hardest part of the work that I do is trying to manage the builder who's trying to keep everything on budget and everything on schedule, the owner who wants everything healthy, but also on budget and also on schedule. And how do you make everyone happy and understand to see through the mud of, okay, what are the priorities here? And how do we actually slowly check these off so that everyone can meet in the middle? But the priority is always the health of this home. Sometimes we don't even love to say health. It's like risk management, because we're really just trying to lower the risk for potential things to happen. There's no such thing as a perfect home. There just is no such thing. You can do your absolute best, but you're working with so many different parties of the project where something can go wrong, and it's just human error. So how can you just oversee it enough to know that you've done everything you possibly can to make your
and that's going to get you to a B+, which usually gets you through step one. And no building is going to be sterile. It's about getting the thresholds that don't trigger CIRS, right?
Yes.
And I say that to all the OCD listeners. You need a B+ building, which is a HERCHME 2 of less than 10, right? An endotoxin less than 100, and P. acnes and Cutibacterium and Corynebacterium tuberculosericum, your actinobacteria less than 10K. And you can do that with everything Ashley's saying. And I have to say, if you watched how guys watch their stock portfolio, and then you watch how they don't give a crap about their construction asset, it's absolutely makes me crazy. I'm like, yo, hubby, yeah, SpaceX is fine. It's going to keep growing. Look at how your building's being built. This is an asset too. And it's a wonderful asset, right? Later we were able to pull money off that home to then put 10% down and build a clean office where our employees, your doctors who have recovered from CIRS and don't want to get sick again, and the patient can come and congregate on healing. How many times do I send out to a PT or such a talented acupuncture, and I'm like, oh, they're in that dumpy strip mall. I'm like, but they really need acupuncture, and they're really good at acupuncture.
I know.
Right? Can let me help you. Like you were talking earlier in the green room about creating a conference building where we could do CIRS-X every year, and IFM and, and other conferences. We need the same for our healers, because acupuncture, Elias has given a great talk on how acupuncture can support the CIRS journey. And it can support everything from pain syndromes to mood, to having suicidal ideations, to migraines, to tolerating cholestyramine well call better and helping gut motility, all these incredible stuff. And I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine and an acupuncturist. I did my Master of Science at Bastyr in acupuncture. And when HIV hit and people were progressing to AIDS, we didn't have good antiretroviral drugs yet. In fact, she was doing the AZT nonsense and all that crazy time. Acupuncture and Chinese herbs and Eastern patterning was one of the only things that could help the predominant gay male population in Seattle that I was helping. And some of these men were having 40 diarrheas a day. And you think I was Jesus Christ for getting them down to 8 diarrheas a day. And I'm over here as a student going, but you're still having raging diarrhea 8 times a day. And they're like, you don't understand, bro. Going from 40 to 8 is like
Wow.
life-changing, right?
Wow.
And that's kind of like CIRS. Like, you have people like Shoemaker Protocol didn't work for me. Every time I assessed that chart, they did not do the Shoemaker Protocol. Not once. 2,000 cases in, they were stuck on step 1. They didn't do proper binder. They didn't preload with fish oil. They blew off Marcons. A gazillion different. They started on VIP. A gazillion ways they didn't do it. But the Shoemaker Protocol is an unadulterated skeleton that will get you through there. Integrated medicine, funk med, naturopathic medicine, acupuncture. We refer out for Burrell therapy, which is like visceral manipulation on even unsticking organs so that they flow better, so they can get through SIBO and then tolerate their binder. That is roots and branches, right? But it doesn't change the protocol. You just do the art of medicine to support the science of medicine. The most frustrating step is step 1. And if they have you on their team, it makes my life less depressing.
Yeah.
Because nothing's worse when people had the money and then blew it on the wrong buildings, the wrong therapies, green band-aids, building band-aids, panic moves, supplement graveyard and cupboards worth of stuff that didn't work. Now everything's like a stressful $2 extra, right?
Yeah.
And it sucks because I did a post maybe like 18 months ago when we were coming home from Europe and visiting the shout out to the Austrian tribe in the airport, where I just was like, once in a while I get hit with these things. I'm like, I want to say that on IG today. And it was effort doesn't equal outcome. I want it to. I want how hard you grind to dictate whether you get better or not. No, data, science, chronology, working with first principles on building science, doing peer-reviewed, proven, published methods of detoxifying biotoxins with organic chemistry. I want activated charcoal to look like cholestyramine in an organic chemistry class. It doesn't. It's a totally different molecule, and it's great for certain poison control when you're riding on the ambulance. It doesn't grab biotoxin. So effort doesn't equal outcome. Right? Organization, planning, working with the right doctors, getting the right remediators. And that's where I love the Ashleys of the world who kind of organize your life and come in and go, okay, you got talent, but here's your dribbling coach. Here's your shooting coach, right? Here's your cardio coach. Here's how we're going to get 5 pounds of lean muscle mass on the off season, right? You need that management because no one's supposed to know. How to do this, right? It's the American dream to own a house. And then you go by and you see plants growing out of gutters because no one cleaned the gutters in 10 years.
I know. It's really sad. It's hard out there, but I want to talk to you about the healthiest home in America.
Yes.
Because I saw that you were doing this on Instagram and I was like, I've got to get him on the podcast. I want to know all the things that you're doing. So first of all, how did this come about? Obviously, is it your house? Whose home is it? What's the, tell me everything.
We sit with our financial planner, which my wife's herbalist hippie friend's brother, Jordan, shout out to Jordan, met with us like 12, 14 years ago. When we were in total student debt. We wanted a college fund. And every time he talks about money, I'm like, I don't care. I don't see myself stopping working. I'm going to help people in some way or another, whether it's research or clinical care or writing more medical papers or helping. I almost feel like on some level, I might end up as a real estate developer at the end of all this because I want to be that water engineer who the true underlying cause of this illness is construction practices.
Root cause.
So the root cause is weird when you come out of school as a naturopathic doctor, you start studying journals on how to build a proper wall in Minnesota climate, dental journals on how to understand how to read a 3D cone beam for tooth abscess. But that's where the truth of the underlying cause is going to take you if you grind as a provider. I realized along the way, well, there's one thing I do care about financially, and that's having a safe house for my boys. So when they go out and kick ass in the world, once in a while, the world's going to kick their ass back. And they're going to kick their ass back through buildings, not food, Mom taught him how to cook. My wife's this incredible naturopathic doctor, whole food chef who, we're three blessed boys who get to eat well. My younger's catching up with her chef skills. They got that. They know to take their fish oil. My older will rage on you for having seed oils, right? and so on and so forth. But the homes. So we said, okay, let's build a house where if the boys get their butt kicked, there's a man cave, so to speak, where they can come home, leave their stuff at the door. We'll wash it, go take a shower, get a good night's sleep, get on your fish oil, your cholestyramine, and then don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out as you go back in the world and explore again. Because we're not a family who sucks our thumbs and says, we're soap all day, right? This is a vicious yet treatable illness that will come with relapse when you take a little bit more risks. Sometimes you're going to say, I'm going to see if I can try that building as a place to work because I'm in school debt and I have bills to pay. But for a lot of my college kids who are graduating as CIRS patients, I say, you're not looking for a job, you're looking for a building that has a job. One of the handful of blessings since COVID is a lot more work can be done where you get a clean apartment or a clean house and you can operate remotely. Some jobs are more like a barista and you got to be there. So that's the inspiration was we want a small retirement, but I see myself working in clinic, patient care, consulting, blah, 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 right? Dr. Bastyr saw patients into his 80s. They have a waiting room of 40 people in his 80s. and it's because you just fall in love with helping people. Right? It just feels so fun to figure out the riddle and go, if we do these things, you're going to get an improvement in your quality of life back. And then my second illness, which we can talk about on another podcast, if I didn't get my life insurance, I wouldn't be eligible for life insurance anymore. So that's kind of interesting. Kind of like, let's build this building and let's go through the pain and suffering of constructing something from the ground up. And that's what's really happened. And that's why you haven't seen me post much on the building lately. Our builder quit on us. We're not doing 3D concrete print. There's a gazillion reasons on that. There might be misappropriation of funds, but I did hire Brian Tinker of Tinker Homes, who's going to be also giving a talk at CIRS, who has CIRS in his family and is a boss DJ, and he's taking over, and we're actually going to stick and frame over 3D concrete. And I think there's some divine intervention on that. One of the biggest things I'm learning with Brian is how to access clean lumber. And I think the healthiest home in America that we're building is going to be more swallowable financially for Americans, meaning stick and frame. But it's also going to be able to transfer more GCs into a building that we can get going with hundreds of builders next year. Whereas the 3D concrete print, I think, still has value and it's going to be part of the housing crisis, but it's almost like energy, right? You need gas and oil, you need wind, you need solar, you need geothermal, you need waves, but you need a mix to solve the energy crisis. You need a mix to solve the housing crisis. That is CIRS. The other thing we're going through is, and we're going to do some courses on this so people can just kind of really just know the basics, is when you own a construction loan, the bank is trusting the GC is drawing money and truly paying subs. Let's just say maybe that didn't happen on my project. And when we took on Brian, I told the bank, Brian Tinker's one of the most trustworthy people on the planet. He's been building for 22 years. And if he screws me, the world will explode tomorrow. It's over. Right? He's just that trustworthy of a guy. But I couldn't get my bank to say, I still have to double sign the checks that come out of the construction loan. So you need to ride your GC to show every single draw, because they do a draw and it'll be like mechanical, plumbing. So make sure you work with your GC on an Excel spreadsheet that says exactly every single breakdown of the plumbing and confirm that that's exactly where the money is going, right?
Yeah.
And that can be like the GC bought a boat and ran off with a mistress and took your construction loan money. And that happens often, right? Yeah. What happens more is you have a dysfunctional builder that doesn't know how to manage money and budgets. As a generalization, I'm going to say this is my experience. Women are better at this. If you have a room full of guys and there's not a woman in there, you need to get a woman in there. And yes. I don't know if that's that maternal instinct to say, no, honey, we shouldn't hike above timberline right now. Lightning is about 20 minutes away, right? Oh, well, it'll work, right? That's what it's like building with just men, right? I saw this with Cindy Edwards when they wrote the medically important remediation course. She would come with these truth bombs and go, slow your roll. You're missing this. right? So that's my experience as a generalization, is you need diversity in your think tank on getting through a building. And that diversity, there's probably some uptight accounting due to OCD that you could use. But as a generalization, my wife goes, nice dream, big visionary boy, but here's how we're going to chop it into bite-sized pieces and not bankrupt your family and not work 100-hour weeks and not show up for your kids' basketball game. So it's like we got screwed on allocation of funds. And it was dysfunctional. So I'm looking forward to formalizing all those lessons and sharing that with the world. And I honestly think this was my last frontier of learning. But I've also learned things like, now that we're on a tight budget, yeah, you can do sheep's wool, you can do rock wool, but you can also do Mansfield formaldehyde-free fiberglass. The pricing on that is $80K for sheep's wool, about $40 to $60K for rock wool, and $20K for Mansfield. There's another one that you can blow in, but it's not grandpa's fiberglass sheetrock. It's clean, it works. And then like you, if you're using sheep wool, you still have to put that in your child's room and make sure they don't have an allergy to sheep wool. Just because it's natural doesn't mean you don't have an immune response. So we are building the healthiest home in America, and we were doing it under a tent. We probably can't afford that tent anymore as we're crunching numbers. So we're going to be doing things like borate on, and we build in a dry climate, so we're kind of lucky. So we're going to do like this little more makeshift tarping with borate until we get roughed in. So we're still filming a lot of the build. And I really think the cool thing about the one silver lining is going to be a more accessible, cost-effective way. Like, again, we made a lot of costly mistakes that when you get the playbook, which is going to be in our documentary for free, it's like, how you do it, right? We will tell you exactly why you need Ashley more than ever before. We just want to create a sequential visual to say, this is kind of how it rolls, right? And even show people picking through 2x4s, right? Your whole wood should be delivered dry and clean. But once in a while, you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater when there's 2 or 3 pieces in there, right? And that usually means something snuck in there. So it's been a bleep show and super stressful on everything. Stressful on marriage, stressful on relationships, but most importantly, honestly, I know we're going to close with maybe something spiritual or something like that. It's been super stressful on reinvigorating my disappointment in humanity. Some people who are listening to this are super financially strapped, and I've been there, and I might go back there, honestly, after this project. But the point is that you can truly always make more money, but it's hard to heal your disappointment in human integrity. And when you do a job where you're in it every single day, where your patients are getting screwed, and on the healthcare side, on the construction side, you know, you want to get rifaximin for SIBO and it's $2,000. I mean, it's just everywhere there's integrity problems, right? And so for me, it's been a real hit to, gosh darn it, I don't want to be suspicious as a human being. I don't want to be intense as a human being. I don't want to be constantly disappointed. I already come from an Austrian immigrant father who says, you do it right the first time. And these freaking guys, how you lay concrete that pours water into the house wall. Like, why you do it like that? You drunk? And it's like, that's all I hear is, don't trust humans. Hitler took over Austria when I was a 7-year-old boy. Is really traumatizing, right? I just want to start supporting and creating decency with integrity. Right. And I think construction practices, we could have a renaissance in quality, in integrity, in craftsmanship, craftswomanship, whatever you want to call it, like in building better and leaving the work site high because you're a part of something special. And you're also gifted. When my cousin in Austria does tile, he didn't do the tile for you. He did it for him. It's his Picasso that he's for his pride and integrity. And he goes, oh, I like that one. I hope Mrs. Smith enjoys my Picasso, right? And he ends off his artwork.
The trades. I feel like there is going to be more of a renaissance in the trades. Right now, the trades are struggling. There's not good trades. And it's expensive to live, and then they have to require more money to take more pride in their work. There's a domino effect, and it's just hard to know how to fix the systemic problem that it is. But
what I will say to that is, per your statement earlier, by the time you add up all the mistakes and the pain and the suffering and the financial onslaught of integrity issues, lack of pride, lack of knowledge, and lack of oversight, cannot tell you how much Ashley's a healthcare hero. She's a healthcare hero in my world because she does her job right. I see 5 less people in the 2 billion that are HLA predisposed to go into chronic inflammatory responses. So my whole point is I think the money was there to do better builds, to do better craftsmanship, but we blew it. And now you're on your third out-oriented strand board place with real estate percentages on every sale, with throwing stuff away, and that feels gross. I had to do a lot of praying when we remediated our house and the 7th rollaway dumpster came in. Didn't feel good, but I knew that the only thing more important than not overfilling the landfill is my family's health. So it's like you have to pick your battles, right? I threw away my mother-in-law's piano. When we were tight on dough, I paid $1,500 for my dead mother-in-law's piano to get shipped out. I never met my mother-in-law. And then it was on a overhanging porch in Maine, where my wife grew up. And even before it came into her contaminated house, every single key had microbial growth that you couldn't see. So you hit a piano and ping, just burst of microbes. So my wife looks at me, she goes, I know, I just can't be here when you do it. And no one was around. I had this window and I did like these Egyptian moving the piano out with these rolling logs. And I opened the side of the thing and I buried it in astroturf that got ripped out that day. And, spent $1,500 to ship that out for nothing. And it's just like 100x, 200x, 300x that in our patient stories. The money was there to build with plywood over oriented strand board, to use non-formaldehyde, to do some EMF coating. If you have solar, to put some EMF shield on there, to build better plumbing and so on and so forth. So that's my deal.
Man, this has just been such a amazing conversation. And I think this whole thing, it all boils down, if we're going to get into the spiritual side of things, it's like this lesson in detachment, because when you have to give everything away that you've ever owned, or maybe you've gone through that and you thought you had to give everything away and you just get rid of all of your belongings, it's like an existential crisis. You're like, holy crap. And you learn that you're okay. You're going to be okay, even without all these things and sometimes even the memories. And it's so painful and it's so hard, but it truly is such a lesson in detachment.
There's one other lesson that I tell patients. The number one tenet of healing is honesty. And that includes detachment. You need to get honest that you don't need your albums to be happy. They represent something that's important, and I don't want to downplay that, but it's honesty. Does your doctor know what they're doing? Does your remediator know what they're doing? Are you spending more money than you have? And if so, how are you going to pull it now and pay it later, right? Everything is based in honesty. When your plumber is plumbing something and it's a new weld for them, do they pause and say, I've never welded this before, right? I need to call my boss. And when you do things right, it takes time. And Americans are instant gratification bred. And Bezos isn't helping. Right?
No.
Right? I want to need plywood and have him pop out of my toilet with 2 pieces of plywood. And if it has mold on it, I want to not care because this needs to get done. Because my family's been estranged living in a barn in a biblical Dorninger story of CIRS healing, right? So it's like, I agree with you, like the detachment. I was a hoarder of healthcare books because I thought these books were going to protect me from ever letting a patient down, right? And when I prayed about what is this about, dear Lord, why am I so attached to these? It's about feelings of inadequacy.
Wow.
Am I enough to these suffering people who are flirting on divorce, and little Timmy's riddled with shame from the bedwetting, and his sisters had migraines for 7 years and they've been to 12 specialists and the Mayo Clinic and right? Am I enough? And the truth is, I don't know, but these books aren't going to save me. It's all in my laptop now. I can pull up my Shoemaker papers. I can email my mentors. And it's saying, I don't know if I am or not, but if not you, then who? If Ashley's not going to step into it, who's going to step into it? If you're not going to be the mom that tells your friend, you should look in the CIRS if you're still having accidents at 8 years old. If not you, then who? the carpenter who's like, I'm done not flashing a window properly. I'm going to go home and watch some YouTubes on like the craziest, European descent family builders of 7 generations learn how to properly flash a window.
Yeah.
Right. And tomorrow I'm going to be better at my job. And that's all I'm going to ask. And that's what CIRS X is about, right? It's about getting environmental professionals, health professionals, coaches, patient advocates, lawyers, therapists, family, and learning together on how to eradicate this illness.
Yeah. And let's talk about that because this is going to release on June 25th and CIRS X for 2026 starts following day, right?
Yeah. Whatever that's that Friday, the 26th, 27th, all day Friday, all day Saturday, and Sunday morning at Fort Lauderdale in a brand new Omni Hotel. We try and find clean buildings to congregate and learn from each other. And it is where the magic happens, right? It's where I'll get to sit down with John Banta and shuck it up about little minutia details. And Bill Weber comes over and starts going, oh, that just came up in a testimony I had the other day, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a spoiled brat because I'm surrounded just by the best in environmental minds and integrity and standardization to do things right. That's even before we get to the healthcare side and health coaches and so on and so forth. So it's a blast, and it usually is very uplifting. You come back super pumped, a little exhausted, but pumped just to roll up your sleeves and get back to it.
Get ready to take notes.
For sure. Yeah.
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 And it's online too, so people can attend. So I think you were saying you were going to share a code with us.
Yeah, the Ashley 26 is a code for a discount. We'll have that code out before, but that'll get you at least 25% off the streaming. We might even try and do better than that because it's going to be late in the game. And you stream the whole entire conference, and then about 2 to 3 weeks after the conference, because you're registered via the stream, the talks will be available for rewatch. If you don't go to the conference or register for online streaming, we release talks a year later. And my motto at CIRSX was to have all the old talks. So if you go to cirsx.com, you can watch all the old conferences for free. But we have to pay the food and beverage of how the whole conference thing is another total scam. Right. I've never made $1 off running these conferences. I have volunteered thousands of hours at this point. Right. The whole point is a year later, they get released free to the public. But we want you, if you're in the biz, if you're a remediator, a healthcare provider, or coach, et cetera, to know now what Bill and Christine are going to say about prevention. Right. I know they're going to talk a lot about window installation. I'm telling you that now. So it's awesome. And all these wounds I have from disappointment and integrity issues in humanity do get healed a little bit at the conference because I see the other side of badass human beings who are throwing down, staying up late, working extra, going the extra mile, keeping people off the edge and getting them healing momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing conference. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't heard of it before. How else can people find you or connect with you or work with you if they're struggling and they want to heal their own symptoms?
Yeah, my website is drdorninger.com, and that's DRDOR, N as in Nancy, IN as in Nancy, GER.com. We do 10-minute free potential new patient consults where I just want to hear what's going on for you. We don't like taking on cases that we're not good at. So if you call us breast cancer, I'm going to send you where I'd send my own wife. If you're that chronic, complex mystery illness, welcome home. But we also want to be transparent where we're going to do data-driven, confirm or deny the underlying causes. Still waiting for a CIRS patient to just be CIRS and not also low vitamin D or TBI history. My Instagram handle is at Dr. Eric Dorninger, and I try and just do good free education on learning about all kinds of sources of chronic complex mystery illness, but most of the posts are on CIRS. And then our podcast is the Vitality Hour, which is on YouTube, but sometime you got to do me the solid and come back because our patient population really needs to hear what it looks like to have oversight. It's brilliant what you're doing. That's where we're at. And we're just trying to bring awareness and access. Once you know what it is, it's up to you with support if you're going to heal or not. Doceria, the root of doctor, doesn't mean to heal. It means to teach. We can teach you how to heal. But if you don't have access to the underlying cause of why, you're just going to keep doctor hopping and floundering. And that's what I want to offer. Access to answers and then support you on your grittiest version of yourself that will conquer your suffering.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Everybody go check out all of the resources. His Instagram is honestly just so much education on there. It's awesome. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for all you do. Appreciate having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Awakening Spaces podcast. If you're ready to take what you've learned and start applying it to your own home, then there's a few ways that we can support you. On our website, you can find a collection of free and paid guides and courses that will walk you through everything from designing a healthy home to choosing safe materials and reducing mold, chemical, and EMF exposure. And if you're looking for more personalized guidance, then we also offer one-on-one consulting and design support, where we act as your owner's representative to help you plan, manage, and execute your new build or renovation project with confidence. You can explore all of these offerings on our website at awakeningspaces.com. And if this podcast has helped you in any way, we would be so incredibly grateful if you would like, subscribe, and share this podcast so that it can reach more people. Until next time, thank you so much for listening and being here and stepping into what it means to be an awakened homeowner.